wanted to do a demonstration on canvas and paper, and based on a question that I get all the time, and that is, do I use gesso before I start? Do I prime my canvas? Do I prime my paper with gesso? And my answer is no. I'm pointing to clear gesso, but I'm also using white gesso. I'm going to be using white paint, and then I'm going to be showing the demonstration without any gesso, which is normally how I start my demonstration. Not only do I want to use the high flow and a soft body, I also want to do it with adding a pencil, and that's a Tombow, which is like a drafting pencil. It doesn't smear. And then I'm going to be using a woody later on, and I pull that in after the fact. So I'm going to be spreading this out, and I went ahead and decided to use the same color, even though it's Atelier paint, which is a little bit different. There's the Liquitex, but it's a little different blue. But I wanted to try to keep it as close to the same color. And then that's the Tombow drafting pencil. It's a beautiful pencil. I use it in a lot of my pieces. There's the Liquitex clear gesso, and the white gesso can be any brand that you choose. It's gesso's in. I use black a lot. You can get it in black, you can get it in gray, I think even red and yellow. Gesso is just a supposedly less expensive. It's been a while since I've actually purchased some gesso, but a lot of, I think maybe watercolorists use gesso. I don't watercolor in the same way. So I'm laying these out, and what I did is I went ahead and I got a piece of raw canvas, because that's what I use a lot. And the first one I put clear gesso, the second one is regular white gesso, and then there's the third, which is white paint, and then the last one is the raw canvas, which I use a lot. Then I'm using watercolor paper, and I use a lot the 140-pound Canson, and I use a lot of acrylics, and I use a lot of water, and if they do curl at all, I just flatten them out, and I have no problem whatsoever. So I wanted to also show you what it looks like on the watercolor paper, because if anything that you would think maybe you would gesso would be the watercolor paper, because I wouldn't put as many layers. But I'm just laying these out in the clear gesso, the white gesso, acrylic paint, and then no paint. And the results came out about what I thought. There were a few surprises when I did this, but the results came out about what I thought. And if I'm ever asked again, do I gesso my paper, I'm going to say no, because I just don't feel that there is a necessity in my style of painting. So again, I'm going to start with the clear gesso, and that is a high flow. It is a blue, a phthalo blue, and the high flow is very liquidy. And so I'm going to try to keep it a very controlled experiment here, and use the same brush for each one of these strokes, and we'll just see what happens. I can already tell with the clear gesso, it's starting to feather on the edges. I didn't see that on the white paper or the white, but look at that on the raw canvas. It soaked down in because there was nothing as a barrier. And then when I brushed the brush over it with the same amount of strength as I did with the others, it spread out, but it had soaked down in. And maybe that's why I like it. Here I am just painting over a little bit to cover the fibers, but I love that look of the fibers. just never had a problem with that. That may be a reason why you would use a clear or a white gesso or an acrylic paint if you don't like that fibers, if you don't like the look of the fibers. Now, when you get a canvas from like Michael's or Jerry's, most of the time it's going to look like that one right there. I have my hand on it. It's going to have a white coating of gesso already on it. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the 140-pound watercolor paper. I'm using the high flow. I'm getting a brush and using the same pressure of pushing down on the paint. And nothing seems to be looking different, but again, I love the look of it on the raw paper with nothing on it. That's over there on the right. So I don't really see a difference, but I really like that clean look of how it soaks into the paper. There is still a little bit of feathering with the clear gesso, but not enough to even, think about that there's a difference. They all look the same to me. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a Tombow pencil. This is a drafting pencil. And I'm showing you the paint. Oh, I'm going to do the thick paint next. That's what I did. This is the thick paint, and I use the same color. It's a Atelier. I'm using the same color. And I don't get much of a difference. The different colors of paint may do something different. The reason it looks like this is because it's a thicker paint, and when I'm spreading it down, it doesn't soak in because of the quality of the paint. But look at that on the raw canvas. Again, there's like a rawness there where it doesn't cover the fibers, because of the thicker paint, it's not really, it's kind of like a roughness to it. The others, the gesso and the white paint is giving it kind of like a smooth surface. So that's something to note. There's a little feathering there on the clear gesso, which is unusual. But I do so many layers on my paintings that I don't really notice the fact that the raw canvas is looking like it's struggling with having the paint cover without brushing over it, because I do many, many layers. So I'm going to do it on the paper. There's the clear gesso, there's the white gesso, there's the white titanium white, and there's nothing. And I'm going to get my same brush, the same amount. I'm going to try to keep the control the same and just bring the brush over it. Since it's thicker, the paint doesn't like soak in like on the high flow. There's more paint in the middle there because it's thicker. Now if I were to like go and swoosh it down like I'm brushing it a little bit there, it's going to spread out a little bit more, but it's because of the thickness of the paint. But all in all, other than that first one, the clear, which seems to feather out, they're about the same to me. So again, do you gesso or do you not gesso? I like the look of no gesso personally, still, in my opinion. If you're a watercolorist, maybe there'd be a difference. Here's the, it's like a Tombow. It is a drafting pencil, and it doesn't smear. A lot of people who draw use it because it has got a beautiful quality, and I use it in a lot of art. But you'll see when I put water on it, it's not like it doesn't smear. It's not like water soluble. And that's why I went back and grabbed a woody, because that woody is. So I'm using a different brush. Of course, I'm dipping it in the paint water that's still a little bit blue. And there is no difference. There's nothing really to see here. I just wanted to show you a couple different scenarios just in case. But you can see how water soaks in to the different pieces of material. If you look at the raw material, the water kind of beads at the top. So here's watercolor paper, which you would think would smear just about anything. And of course the Tombow drafting pencil. It's the water that's staining the paper. The Tombow drafting pencil is not going anywhere. So now I'm going to go get a woody, which is water soluble. I love the woody. They're like a fat, it's a Stabilo woody. You can get them in a lot of different colors. I go through the black ones a lot because I use a lot of the black, like pencils, charcoal, graphites, and it's like a 3-in-1. It's like a pencil, watercolor crayon, all in all. So I'm doing it on the 3, and then look how juicy that is. That's just going to like really soak in. And I found it did the same thing in just about all of them. I think the clear gesso, it even feathered more. Something about that gesso. And there's the rawness. It didn't actually smear as much on that one, which is how I paint most of the time. And I'm really like painting over it because that's the, I use the raw canvas, or I'll use one from Michael's or Jerry's, which is like the second one, has a light clear white gesso on it. So I'm using the water soluble Stabilo Woody on the watercolor paper, which I do paint a lot on. And again, it's going to give that smear, and I just love the way it looks. I don't see a difference. So, do you gesso or do you not? It's a preference thing, and I guess the reason why I don't, it's an additional step for me. I'd love to hear your comments as to what you do. Do you, what are your reasons why you would gesso your canvas? If you paint like me, we're talking about abstract expressionist type painting. If you do watercolor painting, that could be totally different, and I wouldn't mind hearing from you. But that's the demonstration for you. I've been asked that a lot, so I thought that this was a good way to show you in a very small, contained demonstration, as opposed to large canvases, because I wouldn't have had the space to do that. So I wanted to pop in here one last time and just revisit this, because I know that there's going to be some people that are going to make comments that they really like the gesso. They don't really care for the gesso. They would always gesso. It comes down to preference. This last one here is without gesso. It's my favorite. So I wanted to show you what I was working on this week. This is a large, I think 30 by 48. I'll have to measure it, but it was a very dark green painting, and it just wasn't communicating to me, talking to me. I painted it probably a year ago, and I had been doing a lot of the tonal paintings with a lot of the wooden pieces I was putting in it, and I was doing a lot of paintings with in fact, I'll show you here, cheesecloth and gauze. But this one is just mainly just one piece of cheesecloth in here and some of my writing. It's a very simple, I did get a good amount of comments on it. Would I leave it like this? I'm loving it just the way it is. Is it going to stay? I'm going to think about it for another couple days. It's got some markings on it that are, I'm trying to get my shadow out of the way, that appear a little rough. And I think that's what I like about it. So this is a to be determined finished painting or not. I'm not sure. Here's another one that's in those same tones. This is 36 by 36. And I started using, in several of my paintings, the cheesecloth. I've used that in a lot of my paintings. So I went ahead and added more. And then I added some pieces of gauze. Now, the composition of this, these objects are right in the middle of the painting. And if you were to see it in person, you would see that a lot of the gauze that is embedded in this painting is off to the side here. But these colors here are right in the middle. So the composition is not one that I would think of doing, but I like the disturbance of it being right in the middle. I added that little swipe of the, it's like a cobalt blue. No, it's like a, let me check. I'm moving over here. Light ultramarine blue. So I added that because I'll show you two other paintings that I was working on. But I really like this. I added my traditional word in here. It's a word I write backwards all the time. If you know, you know. It has, again, that rough look. It's rough. It's all I can say. It's like an old ancient wall. If you could see it up close. There's a lot of different tones of painting where I did a push and pull, and then a lot of the graphite lines, I smeared some of the graphite lines, and then some of these are on top, and I'm going to have to do a spray on this, but I like this one. It's to the point where it's done for me and it's speaking to me. I wanted to pop in here and I just wanted to show you this photograph, but if you haven't subscribed to my Instagram channel, you need to come on over there because I go into a lot more detail of how I name my paintings. Not really how I name them, but some thoughts that were going through my mind that help take me to the name of the painting. And sometimes I just name the painting and I don't describe why, but sometimes I go into detail. And then I do stage a lot of the painting. So it's kind of fun to go over there and take a further dive. And you'll see, I don't know, you'll learn a little bit more about me personally. Sometimes through the way I talk about my artwork. I thought I would throw that in there. Now these are two that are 12 by 24. And I used that same light ultramarine blue. And I used some of the paper that I use. I've used this in a lot. You can see it in person especially. I've used that in a lot of my paintings lately. I used some of the same brownish beige that I used in the large painting behind it. And then I did a lot of the writings. It's got my marks in it for sure. And I can actually see these in the same room. Again, it's It's got a rough finish, and I did that on purpose. I did not correct some of the roughness that's in the painting because I wanted it to have that, I don't know, maybe a slight unsettling finish to it. Here's another one with a darker brown. I think this is a 30 by 40. It has the piece of wooden paper that I add into a lot of the paintings that I do. It's got some texture here. It's, again, let me see if I get that glare out of there. It's again, it's a rough painting. I mean, I deliberately left it looking rough. I mean, you can see my shadow, but there's the writing that's in there. There's that light ultramarine blue. There's some of the markings that I put in that wooden paper that I've been adding a lot. I like it. I feel it's done. And it's slightly different than what I have been painting, but I like the roughness of it. And I also wanted to take a moment to thank those that are part of my YouTube membership. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate, one, the support that you join this group, and two, that you trust me to provide some videos for you and information that you will learn from, and that is my goal. If you don't know anything about my membership, I just started it about a month ago, and I have 3 levels: a supporter and an artisan, which is a lot of the videos, and a master artisan, which I provide a review of up to 3 of your paintings every month. And I've already done that for several artists already, and it's been they said it's been helpful to them. So I wanted to thank you all for being a part of my life with me, and if you'd like to join me over there, there is a join button on your phone. If it's an Android, if it's an iPhone or a tablet, you have to put it in a desktop mode, or go to a desktop and you'll find the join button. And I thank you for being a part of this video with me, and I will see you next week.